Meat is our oldest ancestral food. So don't act like that's a modern fad or that maybe that's dangerous. No, that would be like saying it's dangerous for cows to eat grass. There has never been a single study performed ever in the history of humanity that red meat causes colon cancer. There's never been a study that proved it causes heart disease, heart attack, stroke. There's never been a study done that shows that eating red meat is inflammatory. Step one, get rid of all the added sugar. It's a great first step. Step three, get rid of all the vegetable seed oils. When you do step four, oh my God, the nutrition skyrockets and the inflammation is going to plummet. You're going to be getting healthier and healthier. Every human being on planet Earth is going to improve their health by eating a proper human diet.
All right, guys, get ready for the carnivore event of a lifetime. Join myself, Ken Berry, Sean Baker, Kelly Hogan, Courtney Luna, and many other special guests at Meatstock 2025. Come meet us in the beautiful Smoky Mountains of Tennessee at an intimate venue where you can get up close and personal with the speakers and meet other like-minded people. Use code SERENA to get $25 off. For more information, go to meatstock2025.com. This will not be your typical convention. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm SERENA, and today my guest is Dr. Ken Berry. Dr. Ken Berry is a family physician who's been practicing for over a decade. He's an author. His book is called Lies My Doctor Told Me. It's a great book, just makes you question the things that we've been told. We should all be questioning some things. He focuses on chronic conditions caused by the standard American diet and lifestyle, trying to combat the epidemic of type 2 diabetes, chronic inflammation, and dementia. Dr. Berry, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Always a pleasure.
Love all of your information. You give such great information for people who maybe haven't done a lot of research, but I learned something. I've been doing research for 3.5 years, and I learned something from every video that you do. So I think you're just such an all-around great teacher. And so I thank you so much for your contribution to my story and my history and my future and the future of the other people that find your videos.
Thank you.
So as a physician, what was your light bulb moment? Because you were a doctor. So let's start there. You were already a doctor. You were not a healthy doctor. So what's that like for somebody being a doctor and giving advice you're not following? And then what was your light bulb moment?
My light bulb moment was when I realized I was severely obese and pre-diabetic. And that was the first light bulb moment. That was maybe a 40-watt light bulb. And then I said, okay, I can't do that. And I adopted the American Diabetes Association way of eating and started jogging 3 days a week. And after 3 months of that, after 90 days of that, I'm always telling people to do your 90-day experiment. After 90 days, I gained weight and my A1C was worse. And that was the 100-watt light bulb moment when I was like, okay.
So, not exactly the results you were hoping for.
Of course not. Right. But then it made me question what I had thought about all my previous patients who, when I gave them that exact same advice, and they came back fatter and sicker, I doubted them. I thought they were lying. And that was my epiphany. Like, no, they weren't lying. They were doing what you said. It just doesn't work. And that's when I had to say, okay, I got to fix me. And maybe I can discover what I can recommend to other people in the process of fixing my prediabetes, which my A1C got up to 6.1. So I was well on my way to being a type 2 diabetic as a doctor. And that's completely unacceptable. So that's kind of where I came from. Previously, very slender, very healthy, very athletic. And then when I started adulting and, a full-time job in the clinic and a full-time job in the emergency department, I didn't have time to work out for hours and hours every day. And I didn't have time to eat real food, I thought. Then I got fat and sick. And when I did what I was telling my patients to do, it did not help at all.
So how did you find the carnivore diet? Like, how did that happen for you? And what made you like crazy enough to try it? Because so many people just think that we are nuts. And so what happened there? How, as a doctor, how did you find this and think, yeah, that's a winner?
So obviously the first place I looked for nutrition answers was the modern nutrition research. And that didn't help me. That's what the American Diabetes Association diet recommendations are based on. Didn't help. And so I read The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. I read the Atkins Diet Revolution book. I got it for 25 cents at a rummage sale. I still have
Mhm.
that little paperback. And then I read Lauren Cordain's The Paleo Diet. And all of these diets were meat centric, whereas the ADA plan and all the other modern nutrition research is plant centric. You need to
Mhm.
eat mostly plants, not too much. And so I'm like, well, and then reading Lauren Cordain's book, The Paleo Diet Plan, he had a ton of research in there, and it was research I'd never seen in any of the modern nutrition sources. We've always eaten lots of meat, and we've always eaten lots of fat. And so then that really spurred my interest. Maybe the answer is not in modern nutrition. Maybe the answer is in archaeology and anthropology, and paleoanthropology. So I started down that rabbit hole. And Dr. Michael Eads has got a great video where he talks about when you actually look at our anthropology and archaeology, anybody who could get meat was eating meat all the time. Only people who were slaves or prisoners or just locked in some kind of a land habitat where their only option was to eat basically rice and beans. That's the people that eat rice and beans, either by nature because they're trapped in this geological situation, or by an emperor or a slave driver or a prison guard. That's who makes you eat rice and beans. In the past, back when we had lots of common sense, and that means that we understood the laws of nature and the laws of human nature, nobody ate beans and rice unless they had no other option.
Right.
Now, in modern society, we're taught, no, this is state of the art, beans and rice. And when you get tired of that, eat rice and beans because that is the healthiest diet. And then add in some of the seeds from this plant and this rare fruit and this, that, and the other. Basically, the diet we're told to eat today, it would have been truly impossible to eat even 100 years ago, because before refrigerated trucks and modern refrigeration, you would have died trying to eat a vegan diet. You could not have lived. It would be literally impossible unless you were in a jungle setting near a coastline. That's the only way you could have done it. Otherwise, it would have been impossible. Sitting here in Midwest Tennessee 200 years ago, live on a vegan diet. See how that works for you in November and December and January and February and March and April. It was literally impossible. Nobody did that. They would have literally thought you were a fool even
Yeah.
200 years ago. You would have been the village idiot or the tribe fool, and they would have kicked you out. Get out of here. You're nuts. You don't even make any sense. But now oh no, that's the best diet. That's going to save the world and save your health. It's a modern fad. It's almost a pseudo religion because they believe this irrationally in spite of the evidence. And that's kind of the definition of a cult. A
Yeah.
religion is believing things irrationally that no research supports.
Yeah, and it's interesting that so many people, like, for the for those reasons, like whether it's, because they want to be more humane or they want to protect the environment, they eat, like you said, rice and beans or lots of vegetables. But it's funny, years ago, and I can't remember exactly what it was called now, but my kids had a game, like when they first got their very first iPods years ago, they had a game. I can't remember what it was called, but it was every time you got an answer right, they sent rice overseas to a community that needed it. And so I can't understand how people in these areas, in civilized countries believe that rice is still one of the healthiest things that we should eat. It's peasant food. It's food for people who are starving to death. And when you look at, we used to watch videos of who we were sending the rice to, it was this neat thing that we were doing with the kids. And those people are literally like basically just eating rice, and they're emaciated and their bellies are big, they're starving to death except for the rice. And in so many instances, that's what vegans or plant-based people are doing to themselves. They're basically starving themselves.
Yeah. And any vegan guru will tell you, Paul Bernard, Michael Greger, any of the rest of them will tell you, you must take a handful of supplements
Right.
on a vegan diet, on a whole food plant-based diet. It's not optional. You will get sick. You will literally die if you're not taking a handful of supplements. And so there are some vegans out there who are like, oh, I never supplement. And turns out they've been vegan for 3 months or 6 months. And
Yeah.
and also they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't understand human physiology or biochemistry. They don't understand any of that. They just think that and so that it gets back to that cult behavior, that pseudo religious behavior. And there have been multiple cults and religions in the past that have eschewed meat, like, oh, meat is carnal, meat's a sin, you don't need to eat that. And they all suffered from it. They always suffered. Their health suffered. They got shorter. They had worse dentition. They had worse health. They had shorter lives. They had miserable lives. And so I say this all the time. I love it when somebody goes vegan. I love that because that's the first step towards a proper human diet, because at least they're thinking about food. Now, in many cases, they're not thinking rationally,
Right.
but they're still thinking, and that's great. If I can get you to think about food, by God, go vegan. Hallelujah. More power to you, because you're going to realize very quickly, if you've got any sense whatsoever, that, oh God, yeah, food is important, but this ain't. So many people, I posted a meme on Twitter the other day about, here's this line of people who are former vegans who are now carnivore, but the line for who are former carnivores now vegan, there's nobody in that line.
Yeah, I saw that.
Nobody makes that transition. And
Yeah.
maybe, but I haven't seen it. So I don't think it exists. But there are thousands upon thousands of people who went vegan and their health did improve over Twinkies and donuts and Cheetos and Pepsi. Yes.
Right.
But it's not a long-term sustainable thing. And when you really start looking at, if you're concerned about the health of our planet, which I am, and I'm sure we all are.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where we live. If you start to think, so you're telling me that monocropping 1,000,000 acres of peas or corn or rice or beans, killing all the naturally occurring fauna, killing every mouse, every vole, every grasshopper, that's healthy for the planet? Come on, what? You're destroying the natural habitat when you've got 10,000 acres in corn. That's not natural. That's not normal. You're having to spray herbicide, pesticide, fungicide. You're having to kill literally every living thing except for the corn. That's not healthy for planet Earth. And a lot of people, they just see the green. Anything that's green, they're like, oh, look at that beautiful 10,000 acre field of corn. That's so natural, so beautiful. Actually, the furthest thing from natural and beautiful, that every time I see a huge field of soybean, I'm repulsed by it. In fact, Nisha and I, we keep buying small farms adjacent to ours that have been monocropped in soybeans or corn for decades, maybe even a century, turning it back into pasture, in silvopasture, because that's real beauty. Picture a natural scene. It's grass, it's tall grass, short grass, it's trees, it's bushes, it's all of the small animals and all the insects running around. That's nature. Nature is not a monocropped wheat field. That's not nature.
Yeah, and I can't understand the people like the vegans and the plant-based proponents. I can't understand them like bashing cows and cows are killing the environment and stuff. But meanwhile, they never say a word about all the big factories and plants that are making not just their plant-based, meat substitutes, but that are making all the processed foods. They're never boycotting that, but they're boycotting beautiful, serene cows walking in pasture, eating the grass, doing what God made them to do, but not the other stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, and I hate to be inflammatory, but the entire vegan movement is based on, it's literally based on people's irrationality, immaturity, and ignorance. That's who goes vegan, is people who are immature, irrational, and ignorant. And I'm not being negative, because I just said I love it when you go vegan, because if you go vegan and you really keep looking at food and thinking about food, you're not going to remain ignorant. You're not going to remain immature. And just like my friend Leah Keith, who was a vegan, hardcore vegan for decades, got so sick she almost died. And she had tried to grow a garden, and she would literally, the snails were eating up her tomato plants, and she would pick up all the snails and drive them up the road and set them free. She didn't want to kill the snails because she's anti-killing. I get that.
Yeah.
But she's a very smart human. And at some point she's like, I've got to do something here. So she went and bought a supplement to put on her soil. Turns out it's made out of blood. She's like, and bones. She's like, damn it. Why? And she finally had the epiphany that everybody who's vegan has. If they think about food, for there to be life, there must be death. This is the circle of life. You cannot break that just because we're a modern technological society. Those rules apply. There is no exception.
Yeah.
And so if everybody were educated and mature, there wouldn't be any vegans.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but I agree with you that if somebody goes vegan, that means they're thinking about it and they're trying at least. And I have never talked to anybody that went from carnivore to vegan. Lots of people that have come from vegan to carnivore, but I do talk to a lot of people that go from carnivore back to the SAD diet. So let's talk about carb and food addiction for a minute, because that is huge. And I have fallen off the wagon. I am not immune to it. In 3.5 years, it has happened to me. It happened recently. Those foods call our names with the bliss point, all the things that make them addictive. What is your recommendation for people to move past that? Because it's so hard. I'm one of those people that a little bit turns into a lot of it. One bite turns into half a cake. So what are your recommendations for stuff like that?
I think the base recommendation we need to inoculate everybody who starts keto, ketovore, carnivore with the knowledge that, look, you're a sugar addict. By definition, if you're a human being, you're a sugar addict. There are casomorphins and there's lactose in your mother's own milk. She got you hooked on milk. That's a biological protection mechanism so that you will seek out the breast and seek out the milk, and that milk will soothe you when you fall down and get hurt. Mom can put you on the breast and magically everything's better. It's because of mother's love and because of the cuddling and the oxytocin, but it's also because of the casomorphins and the lactose. That's why it works so well. When we used to circumcise little baby boys the day after they were born, we would put a bottle in their mouth. And the best bottle is mom's breast milk, because it makes the pain go away. Why? How? Is it magical? No, it's biology. It's got casomorphins in it that mimic opioids. It's got sugar in it, which causes an endorphin release. So if you inoculate people, when they go carnivore, say, look, you're going to fall off. It's going to happen. Your job is not to try to be perfect. Your job is to know, I'm going to fall. I'm going to fail at some point. Not let that one meal failure turn into a week-long, month-long, year-long failure. And most people who go keto or carnivore, they get enough benefits, SERENA, that they're like, when they do fall off, when you're eating that half a cake, you feel like shit. Whereas before, you felt so good, you were so mentally clear, your aches and pains were so much less. And I imagine it's the same for an alcoholic who falls off the wagon. Absolutely. It tastes so good, but then you feel like shit again. And you're like, damn it, I was feeling so good. What am I going to do here? And so I think just inoculating people again, knowing you're going to fail, you're going to be at a party, you're going to screw up. That's going to happen. You can't just live in this silo for the rest of your life. You got to go out and live your life. But to just know when that does happen, have self-forgiveness immediately. Don't hide it from your fellow carnivores. If you've got a family member who's supporting you, don't hide it from them. Just be honest right up front. Be honest with yourself. This is not okay. I did something stupid. It's okay. But the quicker I stop it, the less damage is done. And I think that helps so many people. And then also just the biological feedback. When you go off keto, ketovore, carnivore, you immediately don't feel as good. You feel like crap. And it's not just guilt. It's not guilt why you feel it's physiological. You physically feel like crap. And if you've had problems with mental health in the past, then mentally you feel like crap. And so that's your body telling you, hey, dummy, you effed up. Stop that. Stop that. The quicker you stop it, the better. Let it turn into a week long or month long or year long F up. Stop it as quickly as you can. And that's why I love our private community. I love that because we say that daily. Be honest. This is your adopted family. They're here to help you. If you screw up, be honest about it right up front. Immediately, we'll literally jump through the screen and give you support and talk you off the ledge, so that this doesn't turn into a year-long indiscretion. It's just a one-time, oh, I ate some cake. Shit. Forgive yourself. Be honest with your tribe and get right back on the wagon and act like it never happened. Because if it's a 1 or 2 meal indiscretion, you didn't really do any damage. But if it turns into a 6-month indiscretion, you're going to do some damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like it being like an alcoholic. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was a drug addict. So I've seen people fall off wagons before. I've seen what that looks like. And that's what it looks like when I eat cake.
It's the same exact thing. It's
the exact same
physiological process. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I have so much grace for friends when they fall off the wagon, but when it's me, I beat myself up, and I don't talk to myself nicely at all, like I should when that happens.
But we should all have a little internal conversation. Why are we capable of having so much grace when we're dealing with even a complete stranger online that we've never met in person. We can have so much grace and we can be so magnanimous with them. But if we oh my God, what a piece of crap we are.
End of the world.
Why is that?
I don't know. We're harder on ourselves, I guess. But I woke up one day after several days of, and I don't even want to, it wasn't horrible. I wasn't eating whole cakes at a time like I did before I started Carnivore, but it wasn't good. And I woke up, I was crying all day. I was like doom and gloom, like the world was coming to an end. But if that had been a friend, I would have just talked him off the ledge and brought him back and said, start over today, have sardines for breakfast, because that's going to, kick off the day. And, I would have been all over them with such niceties and amazing talk, and instead I was just down on myself. So it's a good point that you shouldn't be down on yourself. You should have as much grace for you as you do for others.
Exactly. And I love the sardines for breakfast when you get back on the wagon. And I want everybody listening to understand, SERENA's not saying that as a form of penance or punishment.
Exactly.
No, that's not just like, you've been naughty, eat some sardines. No,
that's right.
That's not why. It's because that is the ultimate pure nutrition superfood. It's going to get you back in good health the quickest. You're actually being nice to yourself.
That's right.
Having sardines for breakfast.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not one of my questions. This was not something that I was going to talk about, but I'm going to, because I think sardines are such amazing magic fish. I have done multiple different experiments with sardines because now I got to be honest, I
don't love them.
I hate them so much. So I finally found some that I can eat without kind of gagging. I still try to get them down within 60 seconds. It's just easier for me. I did find a recipe recently where I can air fry them with some seasonings and some lemon juice, and that works amazing. I can eat, almost like has the texture of like Thanksgiving stuffing, which is such a weird thing to say, but that works, right? But I've done multiple experiments. So 7 days of sardine fasting, ketones skyrocket, like 5.5, glucose was actually so low that one time I had to stop because it was like in the 50s or something. I woke up and I was like, there's something wrong. So I had to stop sardine fasting early. But then I did an experiment where I did it for 7 days so my macros on sardines with some avocado oil mayonnaise in them to make them like tuna fish is 75-25 are my macros, 75% fat, 25% protein. So I switched straight from that to regular carnivore, same macros, same calories, between 16 and 1700 calories, 75-25. I watched my glucose go way up over 100 and my ketones come way down to like 0.1 or 0.2. Do you have any idea, with all the research you've done on keto and carnivore and all the stuff do you have any idea why the sardines are so magical? Is it the omega-3? What do you think it is?
I think it's the very high omega-3, but I also think that for some people, depending on your DNA, your heritage, where you're from, I don't think it's your culture. I think that doesn't matter at all, but it's your genetics. For some people, the amino acid profile in beef, especially in dairy, is very insulinogenic. And so it'll be, even though you're eating zero carb, some of the amino acids stimulate more insulin production. And as you know, when the insulin goes up, your ketones are going to go down and blood sugar can then have rebound up when it goes back down for some people. And that's why the more I study this, the more I think some people, they should be seafood heavy carnivores. That's not talked about enough because we're all so in love with grass finished beef and the ruminants, which I think is we should be in love with them. But I think some people, if your ancestors literally lived on the ocean coastline, that's probably where you need to be.
Yeah, it's really, the sardine thing is just really interesting because people are so divided, especially on the sardine fasting, even in the carnivore community, about, oh, you're only losing weight because you're eating low fat, or you're only losing weight because you're eating low calories. So I did it with lower calories and higher calories and had exactly the same results as far as weight loss. So from, like even 600 calories a day, because I hate them so much that I'd only eat 2 cans with some mayonnaise, up to 16 to 1700 calories a day, same weight loss, same ketones, same glucose. Like it's an amazing process to watch. It's a science thing. I love to see the numbers. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend sardine fasting.
Yeah. And I love it. I call it the sardine challenge, but that's just terminology.
Yeah.
But there's a significant percentage of humans that if they just ate nothing but sardines or some tiny fish like it. So why are sardines special? So sardines don't eat other fish,
Right.
algae, and so they're herbivores. They're basically the cows, tiny cows of the ocean. So they don't accumulate mercury. They don't accumulate the heavy metals that the big carnivore fish like tuna and swordfish do. They don't accumulate that mercury. And if you eat them with the bones in and the skin on, oh my God, what a superfood. They're so
Yeah.
nutrient dense. But I think there's a significant percentage of the population that their best diet would be egg yolks and sardines. Like literally, that's what you live on,
Mm-hmm. Love
especially if
it.
your genetics come from the coastline millennia. Egg yolks and sardines, you would not have to take a single supplement.
Right.
If it were pastured eggs, right, and the chickens were allowed to eat bugs and worms and grass seed, you would not have to take a single supplement. Play in the sun, eat egg yolks and sardines, and live a perfect life.
To me, the carnivore diet is absolutely amazing. So if you had what kind of advice do you give to people coming from a standard American diet kind of thing over to carnivore? What kind of advice do you give? Do you have people dive in head first, or do you have people kind of taper off?
It kind of depends on your personality style. Some people are teetotalers, and I don't think there's any danger whatsoever in converting overnight to a carnivore diet. I think it's perfectly safe, but it can be quite uncomfortable for some people. If you're a rabid sugar addict, and then some people are moderators, right? They like to wean down, and I think that's perfectly fine. I don't care if it takes you 6 months to wean from standard American junk diet to a carnivore diet. I take 6 months. That's fine with me, because we know what the ultimate goal is. And so that's why I do the stepwise approach with people. Step one, get rid of all the added sugar. It's a great first step. Step three, get rid of all the vegetable seed oils. And you can do all three of those at the same time, or you can do them a week apart or a month apart. I don't care, because as you eliminate those three ingredients, what you've effectively done is you've eliminated all ultra processed food, because that's what it's all made of.
That's right.
And so by definition, you're either starving to death, aka fasting, or you're eating more real food. That's a big win, right? Even if you're still plant heavy at that point, you're still going to feel better, and you're still going to be getting more nutrition. And then when you step four is to cover half of your plate, at least half of your plate, with meat and eggs. And that meat means seafood, right? It means any animal. When you do step four, oh my God, the nutrition and the inflammation is going to plummet. You're going to be getting healthier and healthier. And at that point, when you've done step four, got rid of all sugar, got rid of all grains, got rid of all the beans and peas, got rid of all the vegetable seed oils, and at least half of your plate's covered with meat and eggs. Then you're so much healthier. You're so much more mentally clear that you can look around and go, well, do I want to do high fat carnivore? Do I want to do seafood carnivore? Do I want to, just stay keto with lots of plants? How am I feeling? What are my numbers? Let's get some labs checked. And so it's a safe place where you're getting enough nutrition, and you've lowered your levels of inflammation enough, both physical and mental. You can think more rationally, and you can be more circumspect and say, I don't know, let me see, let me look into this carnivore. Maybe I'll do a 90-day, or maybe I'll do the egg yolk challenge. I'll play around with this, but at least you're at a safer place where you're not just having untold amounts of daily damage done by the food you're eating.
Yeah, it's so interesting that if you eliminate those grains and the vegetables and seed oils and the sugar, that you're eliminating almost all of the ultra processed foods from your life. Because if you look at those ingredients on those foods, I don't even like to call them foods. If you look at the ingredients on those products, it's almost all the same ingredients, but then they have all these chemicals, that you can't even pronounce. And so it's interesting. I tell people the same thing: get rid of those, 3 or 4 things, and you're already going to be on your way to a much healthier diet. Unfortunately, those are the foods everybody's already addicted to. So do you recommend a high fat carnivore diet or a moderate fat, or do you think that depends on the person?
I think it depends on the person, their stage of life, their genetics, maybe their gut microbiome. I think it depends on lots of things. My kind of initial recommendation is to start somewhere around 1-to-1 fat to protein by grams or by ounces, not by calories. I recommend that people don't count calories at all. I think it's completely just muddies the water. Think about food and eating food until you're full. I think it's important to tell many people, especially women, eat until you're full. I don't give a damn about portion. I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. Eat until you're full. If you're still if you're still hungry, eat another can of sardines. And then also I think it's very important to inoculate people with the fact that you probably are a sugar addict. When you're feeling miserable that first 3 to 14 days, you can call it keto flu if you want to, or carnivore flu, but it's really sugar withdrawal. That's what you're
Yes.
feeling. Everybody who stops alcohol has the same symptoms as you. Sometimes you get dark, you get blue, you get down in the dumps, you get depressed. That's part of the withdrawal process. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean you need to go back and eat the junk or drink the liquor or smoke the cigarettes. It means you need to be persistent and understand that on the other side of those symptoms is the good health you've been looking for. When you kind of pre-inoculate them with that knowledge and then give them a pathway to a proper human diet, whatever that turns out to be. And I just had Dr. Elizabeth Bright. I interviewed her on my channel.
Love her.
Dr. Bright, I love her
Yeah.
too. And for women, she's like high fat carnivore. Everybody else shut up. I'm not opposed to that. I want every woman to try high fat carnivore for at least 90 days. Well, Dr. Bright is very intelligent and she's been studying this a long time. I'm not going to argue with her about that.
Right.
But if at the end of that 90 days of high fat carnivore, if you're like, I'm having this, that, or the other symptom, then let's play around on the SAD diet. We're not going back to the vegan diet. Of course, we're too smart for that now. But there's lots of room to find the spot on that spectrum where you enjoy your best health. But even if high fat carnivore is not the way forever for you, it's a great place to start.
So a lot of people worry about deficiencies with the carnivore diet, though. Like, I'm sure you get this all the time. Where are you getting your vitamin C from? Why should we not worry about that? And I can say it's been 3.5 years for me. I've been to the doctor, had blood work done 3 times. And every time my doctor just kind of looks at me and he goes, I can't do anything for you. Everything's great. And I can't explain it. He can't explain it, but that's
Right.
what happens. Like, and I don't supplement with anything except vitamin D. I do take vitamin D, but that's the only thing I take.
Yeah, the only supplements I take are vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and iodine. That's literally the only thing
Okay.
I supplement. That's the only thing Nisha supplements with. And if we lived near a coastline and we ate iodine-rich foods, we wouldn't supplement with iodine. Fluoride is so ubiquitous in our modern food supply and liquid supply, and it competes with iodine. So many people, even though if they're eating seafood a lot, they still probably need an iodine supplement. It's a byproduct of living in modern society. What people need to realize is that all of the research on nutrition was basically done in bread eaters, right? It
Right.
was done on a population that was eating way too many carbohydrates. And so if you're eating a high carb diet, you need to think about vitamin C, and you may probably need to supplement vitamin C because vitamin C competes. The GLUT receptors are used to pull vitamin C in just like glucose. But if you're living on ketosis, if you're living on a very low carb diet, you don't need nearly as much vitamin C. And I know carnivores who have not had a shred of anything that contains vitamin C except for liver and fresh meat, which does have their vitamin C levels fine. I haven't been eating oranges. How is my vitamin C normal? They would have no answer for that. And so people need to understand that the last 50 years of both nutrition and medical research has been so bastardized, big pharma and by the plant-based narrative and by preconceived notions that slip into the research data. We really can't use it for anything. Unless you're eating a high carb plant-based diet, then most of that research does apply. You do need to take a handful of supplements, including vitamin C, because you're eating so much sugar, the vitamin C can't get in your cells. But we're already seeing this. If you go to clinicaltrials.gov and type keto, there's over 450 studies going on right now. And carnivore over the next 2 or 3 years, there's already carnivore studies that are being performed or are scheduled to start. That's going to keep skyrocketing as well. If you go to Google Trends and you type in keto versus vegan, vegan's dying. Okay. It's literally plummeting. Nobody's interested in it anymore because they've got enough friends who tried it and suffered that they're like, yeah, I'm not interested. Carnivore is very popular right now, but it's still not nearly as popular as keto.
Right.
Which is fine because if you go keto, I win and you win. If you go carnivore, I win and you win. You're going to be healthier than any other dietary strategy on the planet. So I don't really care because keto is also, it's baby carnivore. It's all it is. And most people who are keto, they just tend to eat more and more meat as time goes on because it's easier and they feel better and they get better results the lower carb they go. So I think that we've been so misled, and I don't even think it's a purposeful misleading. I think the vast majority of the modern nutrition research, I think the researchers meant well, and they believe what they were saying was true, but they were just wrong. And we see it, and it's funny how people, in if you talk about economics, or if you talk about government, or you talk about many other things, it's easy for them to see that the experts got it all. We're talking about what happened with starting in 2020, 2021. Many people, it's so easy to see how the experts got many things wrong. But then they blindly believe the nutrition research, or they blindly believe. It's like, it seems to me, because for me, when I see the experts get one thing wrong, my natural question is, well, what else did they get wrong?
That's right.
It's probably a lot of things, but some people are like, nope, they got that wrong, but I believe everything else they say. I don't understand that mindset, but that's how, and that's, I think it's our job as people who have discovered a proper human diet. I think it's our job to lovingly and gently and diplomatically help those people and ask Socratic questions like, so you're telling me you fully believe they got all the COVID stuff wrong, or they got all the government stuff wrong, but you think they got everything else right? Really? And I think just putting that general loving question to people, most of them are going to be like, well, no, you got a point. They probably got some other stuff wrong too, but I don't know what it is. And that's why we do the N=1 experiments. See, maybe they got that vitamin C thing wrong. Maybe they got that plant-based thing wrong. What Serena and I are recommending to you, try 90 days of eating nothing but meat and eggs. That's not some new, modern, weird factory-made thing.
Right.
That, literally, we've been eating longer than anything else on the planet. So why would you think that's dangerous? If you ask an anthropologist, what food have humans been eating longer than any other food? They would not say wheat, say rice. They would say meat, the flesh of animals. That's what we've been eating longer. So if anybody tells you that breathing clean air is dangerous or bad or modern or a fad, that's ignorant. Come on.
Right.
If they say drinking clean water, oh, that's very faddish. I don't know. We need long-term studies on that. Shut up. Come on. That's dumb. That same common sense rule applies to meat. We've been doing that longer than any other food without exception. There is no argument about that in paleoanthropological circles. Meat is our oldest ancestral food. So don't act like that's a modern fad, or that maybe that's dangerous. No, that would be like saying it's dangerous for cows to eat grass. That's how dumb saying that humans eating meat might be dangerous. It's just as dumb.
Yeah. And the same people that will question you about the carnivore diet and say, how can it be healthy to just eat meat? We'll go to Dunkin' Donuts and get one of those big iced coffees, or one of those shamrock shakes that, at McDonald's, that are just so terrible for you. The same people that question what we're doing are eating donuts and cereal and not questioning any of that. And I think part of that's because that's normal in today's day and age. So people don't question it. Don't you think? Like, people aren't questioning things they're used to now.
It's just more evidence of the immaturity and the ignorance and the irrationality. That's all that is. To say, oh, meat is dangerous and bad, carnivores, let me drink this 64-ounce latte with whipped cream on top. That's just silliness. That's immaturity talking. Or it's saying, oh, this latte with, I used oat milk, and so it's vegan, and it's literally got 150 grams of carbs in it, and that's better for me than eating a steak. That's just immaturity and ignorance talking. Those people aren't ready to hear the truth yet. Just be nice to them and be like, I'll check in with you in a year or so.
Yeah, it's probably also got 150 ingredients in it versus the steak that, has just the one amazing ingredient in it. So what about people who have like digestive issues and gallbladder issues? What do you recommend for them as far as carnivore goes?
Yeah. So first of all, let's inoculate them with the statement that every human being on planet Earth is going to improve their health by eating a proper human diet. It doesn't matter what body part has been removed or manipulated surgically. I don't care if you don't have a gallbladder. I don't care if you don't have a thyroid. I don't care if you don't have an appendix. Just fill in the blank: ovaries, uterus. I don't care what they've taken out. You're still a human being, and your health is going to improve if you eat on the proper human diet spectrum. And so prefacing everything with that, a lot of people, their question is, yeah, but I don't have a gallbladder. Yes, but you are still human. Eat your meat. Okay. All the gallbladder does is store bile and concentrate bile. It doesn't make bile. Your liver makes bile. And when you increase the amount of healthy animal fat you're eating, your liver is going to produce more bile. It knows how to do that. This is not a mystery to your liver. Your liver is much smarter than you are. And so for any of those, yeah, but I have fill in the blank, my answer is, are you a human being? If you're still human and you're still alive, you're going to benefit from eating a proper human diet.
And what about full fat dairy products? Do you think people can eat dairy? I mean, I know some people have that's kind of a slippery slope for a lot of us, but what do you think?
There's a normal distribution curve. Some people need to avoid all dairy except for ghee. Some people, as long as it's full fat, they can eat it within moderation and do perfectly fine on their journey. For some people, it needs to be full fat and fermented, or it'll cause inflammation. But if it's full fat kefir or full fat yogurt that's been fully fermented, and the reason I say it that way is because most yogurt and kefir you buy at the store has not been fully fermented.
Right.
Right. It doesn't contain any actual bacteria, and it's not the bacteria in the yogurt that's doing the magic. That's the part where it confuses people. Like it's got this certain bacteria. I don't currently believe that that's the magic of fermented dairy. The magic is that you've eaten up all the lactose, all the sugar, and that you've bent the proteins so the caseins and the wheys are not nearly as inflammatory as they were before. And same goes for raw milk. I think raw milk, if it's properly sourced and fresh, is probably the least bad dairy that you can consume. I didn't say it was the best. I said it was the least bad because there is no ancestral place for consuming dairy as an adult human. It's just not ancestrally appropriate. Before 12,000 years ago, humans never ingested dairy as an adult. It did not.
But we've made it taste so good.
100%. And you actually concentrate the casomorphine, right? So it's even more like many cheeses are super high in casomorphines, but they're also super high in casein. So it's inflammatory, but damn, it tastes so good. It gives you that endorphin hit. So you tend to kind of not want to blame any problems on the cheese. And let me just be clear here. I love all things dairy. I don't know of a single dairy thing that I don't love.
Yeah, me too.
I could live on dairy if it was good for me, if it was ancestrally appropriate, but it is not. If I get too carried away, even with high fat, like heavy cream, full fat, cheddar, aged cheddar, if I get too carried away with that, I'll gain 5 or 10 pounds and I'll start to have little achy inflammatory things. It is apparent to me that I do not do well with lots of dairy, but it's also apparent to me that I effing love it because of the casomorphines and because of the endorphin release. I love it. I'm an addict. I'm a dairy addict and a sugar addict. And so for many people, dairy is the temporary answer to get them off sugar. Full fat, fermented or not dairy, that's less bad. But then eventually you have to look in the mirror and go, damn it, I'm also a cheese addict. I'm also also a dairy addict. And dairy for adults is not ancestrally appropriate, and that pisses people off. They do not want to hear that, and I get it. I understand it. It pisses me off too. It's true when you look at the anthropological record. No adult human before 9,000 years ago, nobody ever ingested dairy as part of their normal diet. It did not happen. Even 9,000 years ago, it was unheard of. And once you start thinking about humans for the millions of years that our ancestors have been here, then you're like, shit, that's just like 30 seconds ago when we started. If you look at a paleoanthropological clock, that was literally 30 seconds ago. So obviously that can't be ancestral appropriate. And it breaks people's heart and it makes them mad at me for a minute until they try 90 days with no dairy except for butter and ghee. Then they're like, I hate when he's right.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. And when I talk to people about the carnivore diet and eating meat, everybody's always got but what about? So what about the inflammation? What about, red meat causes colon cancer? And so can you explain for a minute for people who don't know how those studies work that list those things as concerns from eating meat? Because it's just total hogwash.
Yeah, it's complete foolishness. So let me just make some statements. And anybody listening who's still on the fence about this, you can record this and take this to your dietitian or your vegan guru and say, prove him wrong. There has never been a single study performed ever in the history of humanity that red meat causes colon cancer. There's never been a study that proved it causes heart disease, heart attack, stroke. There's never been a study done that shows that eating red meat is inflammatory. These are all the studies that your person is talking about are observational studies, which show possible associations. Perhaps these two things are associated. Perhaps one causes the other. That's epidemiological research. There is no study that proves that red meat is inflammatory or bad for human beings in any way. So record that and take it to your plant-based guru or your dietitian or your doctor and play that on your phone. Say, he said this, is that true? And watch them go, well, I mean, that's what they'll say, because if they know about the research enough, they'll know I'm right. And they cannot argue with that statement that I just made.
And all of the studies that have been done, though, that talk about meat causing those issues, it was what? It was a hamburger on a bun with fries and a soda. It was pizza with meat on it. It's because those studies were questionnaires where people said, yes, I ate meat.
Yes, that's exactly right. But what else did you eat with the meat?
Right.
And also, any study that's based on food frequency questionnaires can never prove anything. They can only show possible associations. Perhaps this is related to that, but it can never show causation. And that's why I'm on Twitter constantly calling out Dr. Michael Greger and Paul Bernard. They say eating plants is the best. And I always say, oh, you forgot the word may, this, that, or the other, because that's all they can say based on the epidemiological research is may. Right. It may decrease your risk. It may increase your risk. They cannot never say it does. You should, because they don't have the research to support that.
And do you worry about your heart or the heart of other people that are doing the carnivore diet or eating a meat-based diet? Do you worry about those cardiovascular effects that everybody else worries about?
With regards to a carnivore diet, no. I'm a doctor. I worry about everybody's heart and everybody's liver and everybody's kidneys. But I don't think that, and I answer this question every day on social media, carnivore didn't cause this, okay? They're like, oh, I've been carnivore for 3 weeks. I went and got a CAC score done, and my CAC score is 1,300. Like, yeah, that was the previous decades of your shitty diet that caused that. It wasn't your 3 weeks of carnivore. Carnivore is the solution. It's the answer. It's never the problem. Now, it may be the cause of your temporary diarrhea, or it may be the cause of the fact that you've lost so much weight that now your relatives are saying you're too skinny. Yeah, it'll do those things. You may have to buy new shoes, new clothes. You may even have to have your ring reset. Yeah. But it's not going to cause health problems. That's caused by the previous ultra processed high sugar diet.
And I always tell people, get rid of the clothes that are too big, not the ones that are too small. Like, you're never going back there if you stick with the carnivore diet. So, people go through their closet, but they'll keep all these big clothes just in case. I'm like, get rid of the big stuff. Don't allow that to happen. It's going to cost too much to go buy those clothes again. So get rid of them. Maybe you won't let it happen.
Introduce as much friction as you can between your current healthy self and your old unhealthy self. You want it to be as full of friction as possible. I tell people, if you're trying to do carnivore, don't have any non-carnivore food in your house. Clean out your pantry and your fridge and your freezer. You want it to be you want to have to literally get in the car, drive to town, and buy whatever it is you want to eat. But if you got it in the pantry, a moment of weakness in the evening, you're sitting there watching a show, you're going to go get it. You're going to eat it because there wasn't enough friction. You want it to be hard, just like a smoker. They don't need to keep a pack of cigarettes in the bathroom. Just in case, just in case I want to smoke again. Or the alcoholic who's been dry for a year, they've got a fifth of vodka in the top of the closet. No, you're literally trying to fail. You want to make it as hard to fail as possible. So if you've got family members who are not carnivore, then give them a carbohydrate pantry. They keep all their shit in that pantry. They even put a lock on it. I don't know how much of an addict you are. If they've got stuff in the fridge, give them a drawer. That's where you keep your carby crap. And then if you catch yourself in the carb cabinet or the carb refrigerator drawer, that's your fault, right? You went out of your way to look for that. That's not your family's fault. But now if they've just got it scattered everywhere, then that's going to make it almost impossible for you as a carb addict and a sugar addict, and perhaps a dairy addict, to say no to.
So what is your advice for people as far as social situations? The holidays are coming up. How do you usually recommend people deal with that? The holidays can be so hard, and really just daily life in general is so hard sometimes. Everything we do revolves around food. Everywhere we go, it revolves around the meal. So what's your
Yep.
advice for people in those situations, and then like especially for the holidays?
My advice is to eat before you go. Fill
Mhm.
up on meat and eggs before you go. The more fat, the better. That way, because the two things, if you're fighting just addiction, that's hard. But what makes it harder is if you're fighting addiction and hunger at the same moment in time. That's not even a question of willpower. You're going to fail. So if you go to Thanksgiving dinner and you're also a sugar addict, you're going to screw up. That's just going to happen. But if you have filled up on beef ribs or on sardines and you're just stuffed, you're going to pick at stuff to be polite. But you're also, and you still are a sugar addict, but you're so full, it's not going to be as easy. It's going to be more difficult for you to fail. That's introducing that friction. Another great thing to do is to tell all your friends and family members, look, I've got metabolic syndrome. If they're not medical people, they don't know what that means. And you're like, my doctor told me I have metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. If they love you, their immediate thing is going to be, how can I help? What can I do? And so just like an alcoholic, when they announce part of the 12 steps is to tell everybody you love, I'm an alcoholic. What do they then do? Do they go out and buy you a special bottle of brandy for Thanksgiving dinner?
Right.
Oh,
No.
go out of their way to hide the alcohol from you because they're trying to
Mhm.
help. They love you. When you announce to your friends and family, I have metabolic syndrome or diabetes or fatty liver or severe obesity, my doctor said it's very dangerous. Please help me. What do I need to do, honey? Well, you need to not make that cake for me that you always make. And you need to not be trying to shove dessert in my mouth. And you need to let
Mhm.
me choose my food at the table. Don't be offering me the sweet potato casserole. Let
Right.
me tell you what to pass me. And
Mhm.
because family members typically love you, and they don't. If you say, "Hey, I'm on the keto diet or the carnivore diet," then it becomes a game to try to get you to trip up. But if you
True.
say, "Hey, I've got a medical disease,"
Mhm.
really a game at that point. If you're trying to feed me the lemon meringue pie and you know I'm pre-diabetic, maybe I
Mhm.
need to reassess our relationship because maybe you're
Mhm.
not the loving family member I thought you were.
Yeah. So how do you deal, because you mentioned that, how do you deal with that when you have, like, for people who have a family member that might be pre-diabetic who
Mm,
isn't heeding their doctor's warnings?
yep.
How would you recommend somebody handle that?
Lead by example. First and foremost, put the majority of your effort into leading by example, which means taking care of yourself, healing yourself, becoming the shining, healthy, happy example. Because carnivore, you never see a pissed off carnivore. It's very rare.
Yeah.
We're always happy. We're always stoic. It's hard to piss us off. The people see that. They see that
Yeah.
signal. And many times you nagging and bitching and whining, that's not going to help them at all, just like it didn't help you back when you had a problem.
Right.
Nagging is not the answer,
Mhm.
but leading by example and then being ready to answer questions when they get sick and tired of seeing how you're not sick and tired anymore. They'll
Right.
typically come around and say, okay, tell me about this carnivore thing. What are you doing? I can tell it's working. You feel better, you look better. Then they're ready to hear about it. But just like sometimes when you have a family member that's an alcoholic, there's a time and a place to have an intervention. And maybe it's not right now. Maybe
Right.
it's in the future. Maybe they need to get a little sicker, and that hurts your heart thinking about a family member in that
Mhm.
situation. But if you try to intervene at the wrong time, you're just going to push them further away.
Yeah, it's interesting because the same people who will say, "Oh, I could never do that. That would make me feel sick. I could never eat just meat all the time. That makes me feel sick just thinking about it." Then they spend 30 minutes talking about all their health problems and they had knee replacement and their back hurts all the time. And
Yep.
like that's so hard. I think
Yep.
I posted a video not long ago about how the worst thing about the carnivore diet.
And I think the using the mental health that carnivore gives you to
Mhm.
realize that even though you love Uncle Harry, you love him,
Mhm.
he's your favorite uncle, just not ready to hear it yet. He needs to see your
Mhm.
example. He needs to hear you're not getting angry all the time and not freaking out
Right.
all the time. He needs to see your improved mental health. There'll be a point in the future when Uncle Harry's ready to have that conversation. But if he's not ready, don't try to force it on him because that's
Yeah.
never gonna work.
Yeah. It's like trying to force an alcoholic not to drink.
Yeah, it's just not gonna happen until
Yeah.
they've sunk low enough that they're ready to hear an intervention. And for some, and keep in mind, for some family members, that's gonna be a heart attack scare, or
Yeah.
they're gonna have a mini stroke, or
Mhm.
they're gonna literally something terrible will have to happen before they're gonna be ready to hear you. And you have to use the maturity that being a carnivore gives you. Realize you cannot save everyone. Some people literally don't want to be saved. Some people are using junk food as a form of slow assisted suicide. That's what they're doing. They don't want to be here. And as much as you want to save that person, if they don't want to be saved, you're going to have zero therapeutic impact until they open the door enough and say, yeah, maybe I want to be saved. Tell me a little bit about this. And that's very sad to think about and talk about. That's true. That's just that's the mature way to look at the world. Some people are not interested in being saved.
A family member who had a mini heart attack, and 3 or 4 years later, I was talking about the carnivore diet. I was still new. It hadn't even, maybe it had been like right at a year for me. So I consider that still fairly new.
Yeah.
And I was talking about the benefits for me, how amazing I feel, and my whole family, he's 10 years older than me. My whole family, they're like, oh, you just wait till you turn 50. That's when I started to not feel good. And I'm like, well, I'm 51 now and I'm still fine. That's when I started taking medication. That's when I started having issues. So this family member was telling me about, his issues. And I started talking about carnivore, how amazing it is. And he said, I'm already doing everything my doctors are telling me to do. And I'm still so sick. Why would I try something you read about on the internet? And I thought, well, that's why. That's why you're doing everything your doctor is saying and it's not working. So at what point do you take that into your own hand? You take your health into your own hands and say, I have to try something different.
Yep. Yep. And it's sad, but the beauty of the carnivore diet is it gives you such improved mental health that you can have you're more mature mentally, you're more centered, you're more stoic, and you're like, I love Uncle Harry to death, but based on what he just said, he's not in any way interested in this. He's not ready to listen. Why would I ruin Thanksgiving dinner trying to yell at him? Let it go and say, I'm here if you need me. But I guess you need to keep doing what your doctors are telling you because it's working out so well. I don't know, Uncle Harry.
Right. Yeah. All right, Dr. Berry, thank you so much. This was awesome. Where can people find you?
So I've got a little YouTube channel.
Just a little one.
Got so many videos that don't try to watch them all. Whatever medical condition you have a question about, go to YouTube and search Dr. Berry and then hypertension, Dr. Berry fatty liver, Dr. Berry, whatever, psoriasis, eczema. I've got a video and watch that. And down in the show notes, I typically have research that I based that video on or links of some type that you can do more reading or do more research. I've got 3 books. Lies My Doctor Told Me, Kicking Ass After 50. You just mentioned that magical 50 number. It does matter. And then Common Sense Labs. And we've just about got the 2nd edition of Common Sense Labs finished. Awesome. It's actually being published by Victory Belt, and that should be out 6 months or so, updated, expanded, is going to be twice the size, much more information. And then we're working on a few other books and projects as well. And as always, if you've got a support system around you, good, huzzah. But if you are that person who nobody in your house is interested in eating a proper human diet, we do have a private community. We've got almost 8,000 people in there from all over the world who help each other. They are your support. They're your adopted family if your family won't give you that support. And so that's always an option as well. And we're live inside the private community an extra 4 times a week. We've got 10 certified coaches who are also going live all the time, answering questions all the time, every day. And so if you need that, that's there. If you don't need that, I'm free all over all social media. If you want to see snarky Dr. Berry, find me on Twitter. If you want to see loving, helpful Dr. Berry, find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to find informational Dr. Berry, go to YouTube.
That's awesome. What a great way to explain how you're different on all the platforms. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much. This was great. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing, SERENA. You're changing the world.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.